Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this presentation by the American Topical Association. Our subject today is Public Auctions and the Topical Collector by David Ball. David is a proud member of the ATA and a collector, exhibitor, and nationally accredited philatelic judge. He's a describer for Daniel F. Kelleher, the nation's oldest philatelic auction house. And with that, I think I will turn it over to our rules today are a little different. We are not going to mute everybody to begin with, but if there is background noise, we would ask if you would mute yourself. And this, as David has described it, this is going to be more of a discussion than just a presentation. With that said, I will turn it over to David.
Eric, I appreciate that. I'm so pleased to be with you. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Jennifer. This is a delightful group in every manner of speaking. When you think about what it is that you really like about postage stamps, I mean, yeah, you appreciate their beauty and you like collecting and completion and all that kind of stuff. But if you really think about it, it's really about the fellowship. It's about people that you know, people that help you collect, people that enjoy the things that you enjoy. And I feel so much at home when I'm here, even though I don't consider myself a topical collector. So thank you for inviting me to join you tonight. I don't have a lot of slides. I've got like 8 slides, so it's pretty short in terms of what I want to tell you. But past that, I would love to have a discussion about where we find our stamps, how we dispose of our stamps, and whether or not public auction is something that we should be considering, that should be part of the mix. So that's what I wanted to do tonight. And so I'm going to try to share my screen if I can do that. I'm a Luddite, so you got to bear with me. Are you able to see my screen?
Yep, sure yes. Can.
Okay. Okay, so as Eric said, I'm a proud member of the ATA, as is my wife, and I'm a collector. I've been a collector well since 1967, and I like to exhibit. I'm a judge, and for the last couple of years I've been working with Kelleher, and it's given me a different. I've had an opportunity to see collecting in a different way, and it's impacted me in the way I collect. So I used to just kind of like get whatever struck my fancy. What I find now is I generally will only buy things that I need to help me tell a story, to be part of an exhibit, and that's kind of helped me to focus a little bit. And so I wanted to talk tonight about public auctions and the topical collector. So if you're like me, you get your stamps from a number of different places. And maybe the first place is you go to a stamp show. And I mean, look at that stamp show. That's a great stamp show. And that's great. And depending on if you have favorite dealers that are at that show, or there are ones that are kind of set up and oriented towards topical collectors, that's terrific. And it kind of it depends on where you are in your journey, right? I mean, if you're just starting, either as a ATA member, or you're just starting a new favorite subject, it might be very easy to find things, right? You go up there and you say, "Show me some elephants" or something, and they show you some elephants. Or you might be a little further down the road, or trying to do an exhibit where it's really tough for you to find things. So a number of different places that we can find stamps. So one is going to a stamp show, but increasingly finding things online. So either Del Camp or Etsy is now into stamps. eBay. I find that I'm on eBay probably every other day, because my first love, which is astrophilately, telling the story of the exploration of space through postage stamps, if you've been doing that for 30 years, the likelihood that you're going to find something new that you need is very small. And if I were to go to a stamp show and I say, okay, I'm looking for this very rare envelope or something, they're not going to have it. But if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm in my pajamas and I can't sleep and I go downstairs and I fire up the computer and I type in a couple of keywords in eBay, in a millisecond, it returns a million things. It shows me a picture of it. It tells me what the price is. It's happy to separate me from my money. It's perfect, right? Except maybe that it takes away a lot of the fellowship and some of the other aspects that are important to me. Or you might have a favorite dealer that you're dealing with online. So for stamp sales, for example, you go to their site, say, I want 100 elephant stamps, and there are 100 elephant stamps. So that's great. That's great. We get our stamps from the stamp shows, or we get them from eBay or Del Camp or wherever. And I think part of what we're looking for or how difficult it is for us to progress kind of depends on where you are in the journey, either with your particular subject or how you are collecting or exhibiting. So if you're collecting butterflies on stamps or something like that, and you're fairly new, and the way in which you collect is one where you say, well, I've gotten my checklist, and I have to have completion. I have to get every butterfly stamp. Or maybe you say to yourself, no, I'm just looking for sets that appeal to me. It all kinds of depends on what your the way in which you collect, right? And how long you've been collecting that particular subject. So, okay, you've got the collector, and you're either mounting them or you're doing whatever it is that you do as a collector. But I'm looking at the ones over here on the right, and I'm thinking, wow, in addition to collecting stamps, then there are the meters, then there's the Markoffoli, then there are the first day covers, then there's Cinderella, then there's the trial proofs. I mean, all different kinds of attributes that that we might want if we were telling like a thematic story. And where are we going to find that stuff, right? So now if I go to eBay, I'm not gonna find it packaged like that. If I go to a stamp show, I'm not really gonna find it that way. But there are other places. There are other places where material has been brought together with an eye towards either the thematic or the topical that might be of value to you. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight. Like I said, I've been retired for a number of years. I was in the military, and what happened was there was a big space dealer who passed away, and Kelleher was responsible for selling all of his stuff. And so they contacted me, and I said, well, I'll help you write the catalog. And so I did. I wrote the catalog for that, and I had a really enjoyable time. And when I was done with that, they said, hey, would you like to be a describer for us? So what a describer does is, let's say a family contacts Kelleher and says, okay, my loved one passed away and I've got all these boxes of stuff. I have no idea what its value is, how to sell it, what it's worth. So what do you do with it? Well, depending on what dealer you are, different things can happen. And there are a number of fine auction houses in the country. We're blessed with a lot of different ways of either buying stamps or selling them. And of the top tier ones, let's say that half dozen, the reason that I like Kelleher, not just because it's close to my house. I mean, that kind of helps. They used to be located in Boston, where I live, and they've moved out to Connecticut. But the way in which they deal with consignments is they look at it in totality, and they say, well, how are we going to get the best value of this? Obviously, there are some things, there are some covers or stamps that are just stand out and they're worth a lot of money. So what they do is they put it in a flagship series sale. And there's a flagship series, I think next week there's one. And they do this every 3 months. So those are, it's a big glossy thing and the big photographs of the stuff and it's well written up and things like that. So they get top dollar for these top stamps. But if you think about it, most of us, the stamps that we have are not like $1,000 stamps. So how is it that you have value if your stamp isn't worth thousands of dollars? Well, the answer is if you have more of them, right? So a collection. So instead of having an individual stamp, now we have a stamp album or we have an accumulation. So anything, if you accumulate it enough, will have some value, right? Some value to somebody. So there are people at Kelleher who specialize in the super expensive stamps, writing those up, and they know all the the perforations and the watermarks and all this reentry and all this stuff. I'm I'm not a new philatelist. I mean, I've been a collector for quite a while, but I'm still learning this stuff, right? But it turns out that my niche, the thing that I seem to do fairly well at, is I write up collections. So when somebody's got a stamp album or they've got a whole pile of stuff, I kind of look at it and decide, where is the value in this? Who would want this sort of thing? How would I describe it so that they understand? If I would to give you a word picture in a paragraph, and I said, look, you're not going to be able to come out to Connecticut to look at this. And yet, if you're going to bid good money on this and you want this, how can I present that to you? So I'll pick up a box of covers and I'll say, okay, it looks like there are about 450 of these first day covers, and these are hand painted, and these are better printed cachets, and these are addressed, and I'll try to describe what it is that I'm looking at. In addition to that, Kelleher has gotten into the habit of doing a lot of imaging. So with an individual stamp and flagship, that's very easy. You take the stamp, you take a nice picture of it. With collections, it gets a little bit tougher. So one of the things that I do, in addition to trying to size up what it is that I'm looking for and being able to describe it, is to take some representative images or take images of the nicest parts of it so that we can give you some reason to say, yeah, that's of interest to me. So that's what I do. I principally write up stuff in collections, and the collections were also 4 times a year. But what we're finding is that not only are the collection sales very popular, but Kelleher is probably the only major auction house that spends a lot of time doing collections, describing them, and it's a lot of work, but we also get a lot of business that way. And what would ordinarily happen if somebody brought a collection into an auction house is the auction house would look at it and say, well, these 3 stamps are really good stamps. We'll auction those for you. We can't help you with the other stuff, the common stuff. But what Kelleher does is they'll cherry pick the nice things, put it in the flagship sale. They'll put the rest of it and they'll make a collection sale. And because those are so popular in 2025, they're going to try to do it 6 times in the year instead of 4. And then there are some other sales. So that they've got a club sale, and that's for stamps that are maybe $100 to $500, something like that. They're not, super expensive stamps, but they're good stamps. And then there are the internet sales. And for internet, they don't actually make a book. It's just on the internet. And that's running every week. And they may put up something that's $10. So even though Kelleher is one of the premier auction houses in the country, they're also selling $10 stamps. So that's kind of what Kelleher is about. But this is why I wanted to talk to you tonight. And that's I ran into this at the last collection sale, and I wanted to just share this. I thought this was kind of interesting. So auction houses came into being because there were classic stamps that there needed to be a market for it. So dealers would create an auction house, and they'd take these classic stamps and they'd sell them. So you would expect that you'd find classic stamps and postal history at a public auction. That makes sense. In the last, I don't know, 10, 20 years, we've started to sell first aid covers. So you don't necessarily think of going to Siegel or to Rumsey or to Kelleher for first aid covers, but we're starting to carry those. So first aid cover collectors should be looking at Kelleher because they might find some bargains, or they may find some rare things. And the latest thing is now we're finding topical stamps. And it's like, I never would have thought of that. When I think of topical stamps, I think of things that are very affordable. When I'm thinking of big auction houses, I'm thinking of, rare stamps that I recognize, and that each stamp is worth a lot of money. But auction houses are changing. And I can only speak for Kelleher, but not only do they do the classic stamps and the postal history, and they've gotten into the, first aid covers, but we're starting to see other stuff. We're seeing topical stamps. They're starting to do coins and baseball cards and autographs and all that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of follows the progression that we've seen with brick and mortar. It used to be, well, when I was growing up, there was a stamp shop in every town. And then it was the stamp and coin, and then it was the coin and stamp, and then it was the hobby store, and then it was, F.W. Woolworths or H.E. Harris, or, it kind of, when demand slacked off, they started drawing in other things. And so I'm not suggesting that the market is bad for classic stamps, but just that the auction houses have recognized that that there's some money to be made, that if you invite the collectors in, they're going to look, and they're going to there'll be some trading in things like first aid covers and topical stamps. So this is what I wanted to show you. This is from the last collection sale. So you're looking over on the left, and you see it says Ukraine and Uruguay and Vatican City. These are all country lots. So these would be a stamp album where somebody is collecting Vatican City, and it's got stamps in it. And then underneath that, it says general collections and accumulations and dealer stock and things like that. And down there at the bottom, it says topical collections. Well, there are about 75 topical collections there. All right. And so over on the right, what I did was I made an Excel spreadsheet, and I was just curious, how is that stuff working? So you look at the first one, lot 3649. This is AIDS and drug abuse. So what happens, one of my jobs is, in addition to describing it, is I have to assign some sort of an estimated value. And so what that means is, this is what I think it's going to sell for. I might look up and tell you what the catalog value is, but catalog values, as you know, don't necessarily correspond to market value. So this is what I think it's going to bring. So I looked at this AIDS and drug abuse, and I said, well, I think that's going to sell somewhere between $600 and $800. And the way Kelleher works, and I think most of them do, is they won't accept a bid that's less than half of the estimate. So if I estimate it at 600 to 800, the auctioneer is going to open it at 300. So it opens at 300, this hammered at 400. Okay, so somebody collects, AIDS and drug abuse, they paid $400 for this. Now look at the next one, 3650, fauna. And the estimate here is $10,000 to $15,000. And I'm thinking to myself, what topical collector is going to spend $10,000 on fauna stamps? I mean, I don't know, if you were starting out, would you be starting out saying, well, I'm gonna bid on $10,000 worth of fauna stamps? And if you were an advanced fauna collector, would you then be spending $10,000 on fauna stamps? It doesn't make any sense. Well, it turns out what we're looking at, this fauna collection, it's 25 volumes. Okay, it's nearly 100 pounds of a very advanced kind of collection. So if you looked at it and looked through it, you'd be very impressed. And so it opens at $5,000. It goes up, it ends up selling at 9,000. Well, the question is, who buys that? Who's spending $9,000 on these topical stamps? And the answer is no collector's doing that. Okay. This is some sort of a dealer. Okay. And the dealer is buying this, recognizing how much value there is in it, and then saying, okay, I'm going to break this up. I'm going to take it to stamp shows. I'm going to put it on my website. I'm going to put it up on eBay. And they're going to turn around and make themselves some serious money. And it turns out a large percentage of the stamps that are sold by Kelleher and by all the auction companies are actually sold to dealers who are then reselling or breaking it down into manageable chunks that are the right size for collectors, and offering that material. So here's the next one, 3651, Animal Kingdom. So we estimated that it would start at $2,500. It hammered at $3,000. Again, I have to think that this is a dealer who's buying this stuff. So here's the next one, 3652, bats. So we look at this, it opens at $300. And when it says hammer and it says closed, it means it didn't sell. So, okay, so, no bat collectors there that day. Look at the next one, bears, didn't sell. So, it's interesting. The most expensive one, the one that, was $10,000 to $15,000, that one sold, right? But the one that was $300 for bears or $300 for bats did not. So there are two different targets in the market here. One is the collector, the one that collects bears, and the other is the eBay dealer that sees all this great stuff and it's packaged for a dealer, and they buy it and they cut it down to size and resell it. I tell you this not because I think that you should spend $15,000 on fauna stamps. The reason I mention this is because I think there's a conscious effort here. Well, I know there's a conscious effort to not only sell the stamps, which is our job at Kelleher, but also to respond to two different markets. One is the dealer who needs a whole bunch of stuff and to break it down and then sell it to collectors. And the other is to respond to the collecting community. Now, it takes us the same amount of time to sell bats at $600 as it does to sell $5,000 worth of Animal Kingdom. So on the one hand, if you were an auction house, and we're going to make the same money whether we sell Animal Kingdom or bats, if it takes the same amount of time to sell one or the other, and kind of similar amounts of time to do the things that I do the organizing, the describing, the imaging, you would just sell big lots. You would just be Costco, right? You wouldn't deal with collectors at all. But you can see what's going on here. In addition to selling these big chunks, there are lots of individual topical collections. And I will tell you, I looked at several of these collections and they're lovely. I mean, just some wonderful stuff. It's not your, first 100 panda stamps that you can find. I mean, many of these you would be proud to take this stuff and immediately make an exhibit out of it. So I guess my point is this, that if you can find a place where there are really good topical collections and the opening bid is $300, you should be there. You should be looking. Now, obviously, you may not be able to go to Connecticut to go to this, this auction, but there are alternatives. There are alternatives for you to be able to see this stuff and for you to be able to bid on it. And you can see the majority of these topicals did not sell. Now, whether or not they're going to, often what happens when things don't sell is Kelleher will go back to the consignor and say, okay, it didn't sell. What do you want to do? Now, sometimes it's because, the right mix of bidders just didn't show up that day and you just need to reissue it again. Sometimes it's because the estimate was too high and you say, well, look, if we drop the price, I think maybe some people would be interested. So a lot of these items might be coming back up again. But, I looked at this and I thought, boy, if I were a topical collector, and a couple of them, I almost like, wow, maybe I should start collecting topically. I just thought, wow, if I were a topical collector, I would want to be around for this. So, bidding at auctions has changed substantially over the years. Auctions have been around forever. And normally what would happen is the material would be with the auctioneer, and the auctioneer would have a bunch of people in front of him with their paddles. And you can see me, I'm on the bottom there where it says 47. That's my lucky number. So you'd have your paddle and you'd have to be in the room. Well, nowadays it's a little different. So there's on the right, that's David Kugel. He's one of the owners of Kelleher. And in this case, he's in Hong Kong. They've got an office there, and he's selling Chinese stamps. But there are lots of ways you could be in the room. In the lower right-hand corner is a fax machine. I swear to God, you can still use a fax machine. You can send in a mail bid. You can be on the phone, see on the bottom there. So if for example, you wanted to get a sense of what was going on, and you wanted to participate while the auction was going on, you could call them a couple days ahead of time and just say, hey, look, would you give me a call like 10 lots before you get to this one, and have somebody on the phone and help me bid? And they would do that. And then at the top on the right, you can actually bid online in real time. So they stream the auction, and they have a live stream on you can hear the auctioneer, and you can bid. So I can enter my bids electronically, which is actually what I've done for next week's sale, because I'm collecting some things from the flagship sale. But I'm also on the internet seeing them as they're offering these things, and I'm able to get in there and look. And because Kelleher does a lot of imaging, they not only take like a cover shot of kind of the overall thing, but they often do a lot of videos. They may do PDFs, they may do JPEGs, they may do short little videos. So if it's a collection, they might flip through the collection. If it's in a book or something, just kind of, go from page to page. So you can get a sense of what it is that's in that lot. And so you might very well feel comfortable saying, I know what's involved with that, and I feel comfortable bidding by mail or by phone or by fax or, whatever. But there are lots of different ways that you can do that. And just a couple of final thoughts about topicals. First of all, when I talk to people about collecting postage stamps, they're kind of bemoaning the fact that organized philately is in decline, that people are not joining. I'm with the American Airmail Society, and when I joined, I don't know, 25 years ago, we had 2,500 members, and now we have 650. So, and lots of, APS used to have 50,000 members. Now they have 25,000. So organized philately is in decline. Okay, things are changing. But stamp collecting is not dying. Stamp collecting is alive and well, but the way in which we collect may be different, right? It used to be that people collected stamps. Now a lot of people collect envelopes. Topicals are certainly, topicals are the future. I truly believe that. So, people may be collecting and it may be a little more insular. They might be getting their stamps from Etsy or something, or not going to stamp shows or things like that. But stamp collecting is alive and well. And who's collecting may be different. All right. So, for example, the market for Chinese stamps, old valuable Chinese stamps, very hot. Okay. And the reason is there's now there's a middle class in China where there didn't used to be. It used to be you were either elite or you were a peasant. And if you're middle class and you have disposable income and you want to get in touch with your culture, you become a stamp collector. So, different kinds of things. Mongolia is selling really well, and Bhutan, I don't know why these things are the way they are, but stamp collecting is alive and well. And topical collecting is, I'm going to say it's the cat's pajamas. I don't know what that means, but it is. And I guess the thing about topical collecting, and I think about it because I do a lot of exhibiting, is, to me, collecting is not just about what you, or for me, it's not just what I'm putting together. It's something that I want to share with others. I want to tell you that I'm crazy about cats, so I want to show you all the different kinds of cats there are, you know? Or the other thing is, if you're a topical collector, you don't necessarily have to be into perforations and watermarks and all that sort of stuff. You can just be interested in the images on the stamps, and it's pure joy. And I know you know that. I'm speaking to the choir, but I want you to know, as someone who, maybe I'm not an outsider because I'm a proud member of ATA, but I would not consider myself a topical collector. And yet, every time I meet a topical collector, they have a smile on their face. And I know your organization is growing. And I know the median age of somebody in the American Airmail Society is like 93. And I don't know what it is for topical collectors, but I know it's a lot younger. So I really believe the future of stamp collecting, the way in which we draw people in to be stamp collectors, the way in which we touch others, people who will collect stamps, even though they're not really stamp collectors, but they love a particular topic, and whether they're sharing it, or just doing it for themselves, that it's a touchstone. There's a relationship between subjects that people enjoy and postage stamps. Now, in terms of ATA being a philatelic benchmark, as I said, I'm with the American Airmail Society, and when I look at what we want to do with the AirPost Journal, or what I want to do with the website, or what I want to do with membership, or the way in which we do customer service, or the trajectory of my society, I look to the ATA, because the ATA is running on all cylinders. I gave a presentation to the leadership at AAMS, and I said, you want to see somebody who's doing this right? Let me show you this. Here's a copy of Topical Times. Okay. Now, we have 3 advertisers in our magazine. They have 18. Okay. Our magazine is 40 pages. Theirs is 80. I want you, when you open this up, how many volunteers do they have listed at the front of their magazine? They have 38. How many different chapters are they reporting? I mean, you open up Topical Times, and it's overflowing with energy and positivity and people volunteering and being engaged. You can see how alive stamp collecting can be. So when I'm trying to figure out, I say to myself, what would Dawn do? Or I contacted Martin. We were looking for a new editor, and so I contacted Martin, and I said, would you be able to work on this for us? And he said, no, I'm kind of maxed out. And I talked to Jennifer, and I said, Jennifer, you're doing a lot for ATA. You're doing a great job. And she says, yeah, that's great. And I said, maybe if you had a little bit more bandwidth, you could do some stuff for us too. Not that I was going to hire her away, okay, but obviously you have great talent and great volunteers. And so when I want to do something right, the first thing that I do is I look to Don's organization and I say, how are they doing it? And we don't have to do it exactly the same, but the ATA is definitely the place to look. And when you want somebody and you're trying to encourage them to join, you say, we got a database. It's got 500,000 stamps in it. We have virtually 1 million topical listings. I mean, you look at all these checklists. I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, I remember when I joined, I'm interested in aviation and space, and I thought, well, topicals are going to be pretty basic for me. I'm pretty advanced when it comes to knowing my different kinds of airplanes and things like that. And so when somebody said to me, well, what checklist would you like? And I said, well, I don't really need a bunch of stamps that have, generic airplanes on it. I said, what would be really great is if you had a checklist of experimental aircraft. And they say, oh, you want that checklist? And I'm like, so I am in awe of the ATA. One of the other things that I really like about the ATA is the relationship that it has to exhibiting. For lots of societies, I don't want to say that exhibiting is an afterthought, but you've made a real conscious effort to create a very gentle on-ramp for people to exhibit. So with your single page exhibiting thing, I mean, maybe 10 frames is too much for somebody, maybe one frame is too much for somebody, but a page anybody can do, a 5-year-old can do. So encouraging people to not be overwhelmed, to be able to take the things that they love and move forward with that. Once they get bitten by that bug, once they have an opportunity to see the excitement in someone's eyes because you excited them about something that you're passionate about, now they're going to go on and they're going to do a single frame or they're going to do a 5 frame. And that on-ramp, helping people to move from taking their passion and saying, well, maybe my stuff isn't good enough, or maybe I don't have enough stuff, or maybe I don't have a story to tell. When you get started, you realize I do have enough stuff. I do have a story to tell. It's important to me. I bet you it's important to some of the people that look at my exhibit. And you do that. You move people towards exhibiting. And I'm impressed with that. And my last thought is just when we're buying and selling stamps, we're going to get them from lots of places. And I get them from lots of places for myself, from my collection. I get a lot of stuff from eBay. I go to as many stamp shows as I can. I'm going to Sarasota later in the week. Looking forward to that. But I want you to consider public auction. Consider buying, or if you consigning to somebody like Kelleher. Now Kelleher has, and they all have very deep Rolodexes of bidders. Now at this point, because of the Excel spreadsheet that I showed you, there may be it may be a better time for people to buy topicals at auction than it is to sell, because you could see a lot of those were unsold. But it's clearly coming into the auction house markets. And if you're passionate about topicals, you should consider looking at public auction for buying and selling. And the last slide I'm going to leave you with is I thought, well, I should show you something topical, right? So a while back, there was Zazzle was letting you create your own stamps. So I created my own stamps, and there I am in the middle, a wannabe astronaut. And over on the right, that's my brother. He's an actor in Chicago. And the lower right, that's my parents. Lower left, those are my kids. They're a little bit older now. But anyhow, so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That was great. And I promise everybody we did not pay him to say that. This was not a paid announcement.
No, but I love the ATA. I really do. Don't collect the stuff, but I'm so impressed with it. And whenever I'm around ATA people, either at the stuff that you put on at GAS or just talking with Dawn, I feel like I'm at home, and I feel like I'm amongst friends, and I'm grateful.
Great. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you, David. We have big heads after that.